Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Real Wealth Solutions podcast. I am Greg Scully, joined again by my partner and friend Darren Light from, I think, just across town this time. And joining us today, we have Shawn Dimartile of Pack 3 Capital. Shawn, I prefer to have guests do their own bio so I don't miss any highlights. And who knows, maybe there's something you want to emphasize right off the bat. So please take it away. Introduce yourself.
Absolutely. More than happy to. I'll try to keep it short and sweet too, so we can get into all the fun stuff. But for my day job, I'm a apartment syndicator. This is what I do for a living. I raise money from investors. We go out, purchase apartment complexes, renovate them, fix them up, increase the bottom line, distribute cash flow to all of our partners and investors. And then at the end, usually in 5 years, we sell the property and everyone gets a big payday. Pretty standard business model in the syndication multifamily world, but I focus exclusively on multifamily properties. I still have not quit my day job. So as a W-2, I'm an air traffic controller, which a lot of people find really unique because you don't hear about that a whole lot. And I'm also a proud United States Navy veteran. I served 5 years in the United States Navy as an air traffic controller as well, before moving on to do that for the FAA. So day in and day out, I'm focused on my multifamily investing, growing my portfolio. We have about 327 units currently and growing, primarily in the Southeast, North Carolina, and we also have a property in Indiana. And I eat, sleep, and breathe multifamily. I also have my own podcast that I co-host with my two partners called the Multifamily Takeoff. We say takeoff because we were all air traffic controllers, so we try to kind of incorporate that there. I also host my own meetup here with my partners in San Diego called the Beers and Deals Real Estate Networking Meetup. So yeah, that's, I guess, the skinny on me and what I do. Looking forward to this conversation, guys. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I see a ton of parallels already just between what we're doing and you're doing. We also have a podcast. I don't know if you knew that. And we started a local meetup as well. So, I mean, right off the bat, we can maybe talk about some of the steps necessary to get into this business and possibly grow quickly, because you are doing more than just dabbling in this. You've committed to what I consider an obvious effort to grow a network. At what point did you see the light that you said, hey, if we're going to do this, let's jump in, let's start a podcast, let's start a meetup, or was it a little more organic? How intentional was it, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's a great question, and it was extremely intentional. So my two partners, Mike and Rich, and I were all air traffic controllers together. And I say were because my partner, Rich, has already quit. So there's only two of us left still at the W-2. But we were all working together as air traffic controllers. And we were all studying real estate and we're investing in real estate on our own. Well, I say they already had a couple of like small properties, single family. And I think Mike had a fourplex already. Myself, I was saving and, on that path of self-learning and, reading every book I could, podcast, the whole 9 yards. Anyways, we were doing all this together and simultaneously looking for properties all on our own and just kind of not with the idea of partnering quite yet. And we all came to almost at the same time to the realization of how powerful multifamily was. So we were reading books like, Joe Fairless's book on apartment syndication, David Lindahl's books, a lot of the famous books on apartment investing. And as we're going through all of this, we really realized that, well, one, if we really want to scale, we realized the power of multifamily. So we decided to, instead of try and go our separate ways, let's just partner together, put our money and resources together to buy our first apartment complex, which we did. We bought a 32 unit together. But in addition to all of that, as we're reading these books and listening to podcasts, we realized that if you really want to start raising capital and growing a syndication business, you have to do everything humanly possible to put yourself out there, meet people, because in this business, relationships are extremely important and no one does this alone. You need a huge team of people. So we realized that, and we realized really when it comes to raising capital, you need to be involved in everything you can be involved in. you need to spend as much time as possible doing everything. So we said, let's go ahead and start a podcast, so we can start learning from some of the best names in the business, building our brand, and potentially attracting more investors. And we did the same thing with the real estate meetup. The real estate meetup was the same concept. And we just wanted it. Our real estate meetup is purely networking. We don't have presenters and things like that. So we just wanted to get as many people together as possible to just chat real estate in our community, and build a community around that. So all of these things were very intentional. We were just basically trying to follow the blueprint of what others before us had already done to grow their business. So for example, in Joe Fairless's book, he talks about all of this stuff. He talks about, building the thought leadership platform, going to meetups to try to meet people. All of this stuff was already done before. So, we weren't coming up with anything new. We just said, hey guys, let's just do everything that they're recommending, and hopefully it starts to stick. And we even, incorporate that into going to conferences and things like that. All of these places, you'll meet people that are looking to partner and or invest. And so we just went all in. Like you said, we completely dove in the swimming pool head first into multifamily.
And you were all still working at this point, too.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
this was not as an alternative to continuing to do your day job and have the whirlwind of family and everything else that you want to accomplish. You fully committed to all this additional work.
Yeah. And I'd like to comment on that, because with our jobs as air traffic controllers, we were working, and I still am working on weekends. My days off are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So is my partner, Mike. I don't remember what days off Rich had when he was still working right before he quit. But I'm talking about, we work 7 days a week, and I have been working 7 days a week for years now, because the air traffic control job, the W-2, requires my time on the weekend. I work a double on Sundays, and that's like working in the morning and then working the graveyard Sunday night. I work Saturday mornings and I work Friday evenings. So my weekend's completely shot. And then during the week, I'm working on real estate things, hopping on calls consistently, managing the property managers, raising capital, having meetups, recording podcasts. I mean, it's, trying to do the W-2 plus have some type of a work-life balance and build a real estate syndication business takes an unbelievable amount of time. But I mean, I'm doing all of this stuff willfully, and I actually enjoy it. It's what I want to do. So it's not like I'm complaining over here, obviously. But yeah, it's an immense amount of work.
I want to make a comment here, and this is based on my experience as not necessarily someone that's been in the business full time for 3 years now, but more so from a coaching standpoint. You have two different types of people that come into this space that invest in their education. And one is you, Shawn, the epitome. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to put it together. I'm going to close deals. I'm going to make it happen. Then you have number two that comes in, and that's their mentality. But when they realize how much work it takes and they don't have it in them, but they do have money, they say, okay, here, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to hand that next person my money instead of doing all the work, because it is a ton of work. And what we have seen people do is they don't value what they're doing enough. And I'm sure we've done it in deals like, maybe we should have taken a higher percentage for this or that, and you learn that as you go. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people too, that start to get into this business, or even passive investors that don't really realize everything that's going on behind the scenes. I mean, it's a lot of day in and day out work to implement a business plan on a multifamily property. You're working pretty much constantly. So yeah, it's and it's also really stressful. I find a lot of people will say, "Oh, you work in air traffic control." I hear that's one of the most stressful jobs in the world. It is definitely really stressful. But raising capital for a multifamily acquisition is also really stressful, in my opinion.
So I let Darren do it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I don't. We'll still go with what Greg's wanting to talk about mainly, but since you sort of went there, is there a was there a pain point? Is there a pain point from the W-2, or is it just not that, or is it just the pain knowing I don't want to do this the rest of my life until I'm 65, like everyone says that's what I'm supposed to do. This is why I'm choosing this path.
Yeah. I mean, like what you mentioned, that's definitely a pain point, but the main pain point is me missing out and the time commitment required for this W-2. I will not have weekends off if I stick with that job for at least another 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And I've, you know, I've been working there for 6 years now, and I haven't had a single weekend off. So I'm missing out on a lot of life events, and it's great money. It's a high 6-figure W-2 job. So there is some give and take there. But, you know, as you just continue to miss holidays constantly, I work them all.
Family.
You miss out on family things. Somebody has a wedding on the weekend. I can't go. If it's a birthday celebration, I'm going to miss it. A concert, can't go. So, you know, you add that up over years and years and years. I want my time back. I just need the freedom so that I can do the things that I love to do and spend time with the people that I love. I've gone a long time willing to sacrifice that for the money, but now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out another way to make money and get my time back. And obviously the real estate opened up my mind to the fact that you can make money in your sleep and not have to clock in at a certain time.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but guys, we're still going to be working on the weekend to some extent. I
To
mean,
some extent, yeah.
yeah, but I think we work every weekend. But there is definitely an aspect of optionality to it that you don't have, where you're required to come in for a shift or something
Yeah.
like that. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to front load work to
There's
to
the
the
emotion.
morning, and I'll have the rest of
Yeah.
Saturday off.
The-
I mean, you can push work around to where it needs to be done to free up time for
The
some other
emotion and
reasons.
freedom that comes with that is amazing when you know you're doing it just for yourself.
Yeah.
It's
And you enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Exactly. But like you guys are partners, I have 2 other partners, and it is true that the multifamily properties, you're basically on call in case anything goes wrong. Sometimes, you know, they need the thumbs up on getting something done, whatever, what have you. And when you have a partnership, that's one of the beauties of it, is that you're not the only person at the top of the totem pole. It's where there could be other decision makers. So I could say, hey guys, I'm taking the week off to do this vacation for a friend's wedding, whatever it is. And my partners can make up the work that I'm going to miss out on. So yeah, to a certain extent, I'm basically on call 24/7. But I have other people to split that workload with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like partnership wise, are you guys taking on specific roles? Do you have different lanes that everybody kind of tracks down, and there's usually some amount of overlap, but have roles been somewhat defined at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So like my role, for example, is I'm the primary underwriter. And I also am in charge of like investor relations. So I send out monthly updates to all of our investors, detailed updates. In addition to that, I am the primary person responsible for, you know, the improvements on the property, construction, renovations, all the capital improvements. So I'm overseeing what's going to get done on the property and implementing those business plans, making sure we're on task, keeping track of key performance indicators on how our property management is performing on those renovations, things like that. My partner, Rich, is primarily responsible for sourcing and identifying the deals. So he's the one that's networking with the brokers. He travels the most for conferences and also meeting these brokers and spending time with them. He also does a lot of the capital raising. My third partner, Mike Ty, is our primary asset manager. So he's dealing with a lot of the decisions that he kind of works in cohort with me on the capital improvements and things like that. But a lot of the primary decisions on where we're going with rents, decisions on certain tenants, problem tenants, maybe different offers we're going to do. I mean, just the day-to-day stuff that involves property management is taken care of by my partner, Mike Ty. And, you know, we have all these other roles too that are split up because there's so many things to do in this, right? So we got somebody that's responsible for communicating with the lender. That's me. Someone that's responsible for communicating with the attorneys. That's Mike. So there's just a lot of, you know, sub hats that we kind of have to wear so that somebody is the first person that's going to respond to that email or give that person a call and be responsible for all that stuff. Because there's just so many things. And by the way, with anyone that's listening, there's so many things that I could name here that we've identified as a role for one of the partners. If you're trying to do this business alone, I couldn't even imagine it, to be honest with you, because if I was doing all of this myself, it might be possible, but I'd be miserable.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I like Joe Fairless's book, but it is such a good book because it makes it sound too damn easy. It's a good book. It's very concise, but it's still this thick.
yeah.
And I read it. I'm like, wow, that's a good roadmap and everything, but it's it's not tied up in a nice little bow.
Yeah, and it's
At
funny
all.
because you said it's a great book, and it's one of the most thorough books out
Yes,
there.
it
It's
is.
about this thick, but it's funny because it's still not thick enough. I mean, I could write a book this thick on all of the legal stuff, or I could write a book this thick on raising capital and all the nuances with how you're going to work with these attorneys and what the PPM is supposed to look like, how you're going to distribute this to investors, how you hold their hand, and all the stuff with the lender, how you get the money into the LLC and then transfer that to the top. There's like so many small things that even if you read all of these books and then try to go do it on your own by just going off of that stuff, you'd be missing a whole bunch of information.
Yeah, it is thorough, but there's still a lot of detail in the day to day that I think many people don't realize. Let's completely change gears. Busting up 401ks. I did it. Darren did it. Apparently, Shawn, you did it. What was your route? And maybe you could talk a little bit about the mindset wise, because before we started recording, there's this there's a segment of the public that would be like, you're out of your mind.
Exactly. That we did talk about this a little bit before.
There's another segment that's also like, how the hell do I do it? And how do I get past the barrier of this is a bad decision? So yeah, tell us, I mean, what did you ultimately do? Did you just like, screw it, liquidate, and I'll deal with the tax implications? Or did you use some kind of vehicle to help defer or whatever the tax side?
So I'll answer the question first and then tell you why. So the way I did it was actually two ways. At first, for the first property that we bought, I actually took a loan out on my TSP, my 401k. And then after I got that money out, the pandemic started and they came out with the CARES Act, which allowed you to withdraw all of your, the original reason why I didn't want to just like blow up my 401k is because I have TSP. Okay. And they would only let you withdraw what you contributed. So none of the growth. You couldn't withdraw the rest of it with TSP for any reason. I
What
tried
is
everything.
TSP, just real quick? I'm not even sure what
It's called the Thrift Savings Plan, and that's the 401k program for government employees. So since I work for the FAA, yeah, it's just their 401k. That's all that is.
Okay.
So they would only let me pull out what I contributed, which obviously leaves a whole bunch of money in there that I can't pull out. However, if I would have just taken a loan out against my 401k, I could have pulled out more money. So I decided to do that because my goal was to just get as much out as I could. So then I was paying back that at like 2% interest or something. So no big deal. So I did that at first. And then the pandemic occurred and the government passed the CARES Act, which allowed you to withdraw from your 401k without any penalty. So you don't pay the 10% penalty. And then on top of that, you could pull out everything. So you could pull out 100% of your 401k. And whenever you're paying taxes on this, because it's still a taxable event, you're able to spread the tax payments out over 3 years. So instead of having to pay all the taxes on that year, the next year, I was able to split that up over 3 years. So obviously that was a no-brainer. And I pulled that move and pulled out the remainder of my 401k to invest in multifamily. Now, why did I do this? Because I love this question because a lot of people are at home saying, oh, you guys are idiots. No, you don't understand. What about the matching? And what about, all that growth and the tax advantages? Well, I have a couple things about that. For one, I studied the 401ks a lot and I completely changed. Nowadays, I think it's a scam. And there's many reasons that I'll try to go through as quickly as possible as to why I don't like them. Number one, it's not enough. If you want to retire with a 401k, when you retire with that 401k, by the way, you can't touch it till 65. So this is only for people that don't want to retire early, which automatically eliminated me because I don't want to retire at 60 and wait till 65. But for those of you that like that idea, when you do retire at 65, you have to properly plan for this and calculate how much you're going to live off of per year so you don't run out of money. Because all this is there, it's just stocks. You're investing into index funds, and eventually you're going to want to put that into bonds or something so it's not so volatile. And then you're just selling those off every year or every month or whatever so that you can live off of that money. So it's a nest egg and it's going to run out. All right. Now, to determine how much you have to live off of without running out of money, they have the Trinity study, and you could Google that. I won't explain it too much because it'll take too much time. But basically, these professors at Trinity University studied if you would have retired at every single year starting in the year 1920, I believe, what percentage of your retirement would you have to live off of in most cases starting at age 65 so that you didn't run out of money. And they calculated that if you lived off of 4% of your total retirement starting at age 65, that you had like a 98% chance of your money outliving you, not running out of money, right? So if you want to do the math backwards, you multiply by 25. You say, how much do I want in retirement at age 65 so that I don't, how many do I want to live off of, or if I'm living off of 4%. So let's say you want to live off of 100K a year, you need 2.5 million in your 401k. So then you do the math and say, how much do I need to put into my 401k to have 2.5 million? Well, not counting employer contributions, you need to start investing in your 401k. I believe it's at age 25 or 27, and you have to start maxing it out at age 25 or 27 until you retire to have about that much money. And at age 65, if you're talking about, being young, 100K a year is going to be nothing by then. So I say all of this because it's just not enough for one. And regardless, you're likely to run out of money. All the statistics are there showing that all these retirees are running out of money. So I say all of that long-winded response because I like real estate, because when I take that out and I put it into cash flowing real estate, it's infinite. It doesn't run out. As long as I keep taking care of the property, that cash flow increases year over year. If I hold that same property until I'm 65, it's only going to be making me more money when I'm 65 years old. Year over year, as rent increases, I get richer and richer. It's the exact opposite of 401ks. So sorry about the long response, but I just don't believe in the philosophy whatsoever. It's stupid. You're going to run out of money. If you put it into real estate, that's what I love. It only increases year over year. That's why.
Yeah, and I appreciate the long-winded because that was a lot of detail that I think people will find valuable. I'm completely on board. I'm like, I want to retire at 55. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit closer to that than I think you are, Shawn. And then, who's to say I'm going to make it to 65?
Yeah.
So why have this pot of money out there completely out of my control? Not completely out of my control. With limited control, certainly limited access.
Right.
That I can't utilize.
Yeah,
so,
they're them penalizing you for taking out your money. It's mine. What do you mean you're penalizing? I hate those concepts. It's stupid.
Yeah. So, Darren, it looked like you were chomping on the bit a little bit.
I was actually laid off from my mechanical engineering W-2 job, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it removed a decision for me that I would have had difficulty making, but it also accelerated everything else that I wanted to do in real estate, so to speak. But I didn't do my research. I was just like, you know what? Bam, ate the taxes and just did it. And we have a partner in one of our deals and good friend who created a spreadsheet that probably would back up and serve your scenario very well versus this is how many more years I can contribute to it versus this particular asset and contribute to that asset. And it's clear what the correct answer is to bust it up and get out, even with a penalty. And so he had multiple one-on-one conversations with other people and shared the spreadsheet with them. I think it's great that you made that decision. And
thank you.
Some couple of things I was not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like specifically to the CARES Act, I wonder what the sunset time on that is. I don't know. If somebody's interested, you might want to talk to your CPA and figure out what options are available to you if they still exist in July 2021.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they do.
I did something called a rollover for business startup, which is where you basically create a qualified plan by starting a C corp that
Mm-hmm.
allows you to use your you basically creating another qualified retirement plan that you have complete control over. So that was my route. And I didn't have to pay. There were some administrative costs. I think I avoided. It's been like 4 or 5 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the point is there are options out there.
Mm-hmm.
Might be worth exploring because,
Absolutely.
and there's nothing wrong. You can do both. Some people actually love their job. And we can bring that up. I don't want to completely discount the W-2 because some people are perfectly happy, successful, doing exactly what they love and can have uh, the the option to have their company contribute to their
Yeah.
401k. So you could do whatever it takes to get the match and dabble elsewhere as well instead of
Mm-hmm.
relying on that solely. So.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's Greg from Real Wealth Solutions. If you'd like to know more about our passive income opportunities, jump onto realwealth.solutions and hit that schedule a call button. We're always happy to talk about our multifamily and flip projects and to answer any questions you may have. Again, that's realwealth.solutions. We look forward to hearing from you. And now, back to the podcast.
Tenant leads.
Yeah,
Tenant
tenant
leads.
leads. Yeah, that was on the list of questions. How did you increase your tenant leads fivefold?
It's a
And
great question.
did it go from 1 to 5? Because percentages matter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. So it went from, I don't remember what the starting number was, but when it increased fivefold, I mean, this was for a 32 unit complex. When and in particular, these smaller complexes are where these methods are going to be most effective, because when you've got 100, 150 units, and you got on-site leasing staff, then that's going to make a lot of your leasing issues a lot easier, right?
Yep.
So we noticed with our 32 unit complex that our property management company, what they mostly do is they're going to put up your property on things like Zillow and or maybe apartments.com or whatever, usually a couple of the many websites out there to advertise rental units. And what these potential tenants are going to be logging in and sending a message to the property management company. And then they wait around and for the property management company to respond to them. Now, in our case, we did some test runs, had some friends and family and or ourselves go and message on Zillow or whatever and say, hey, interested in this unit. When can I view it? Now, we were noticing that it was taking 5 days or more sometimes for them to get a response. And they would get a good response. Oh, this is what you could do. You could view the unit yourself. We have a lockbox, whatever. We've got all that set up, which is way too long. If they called the office, usually they got a voicemail and someone actually didn't pick up the phone. So the tenant would move on. And they didn't have anything up on Facebook in particular. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Facebook here, Facebook Marketplace. So the thing about a renter, and I'm actually a renter myself. I have a nice apartment here in San Diego, and my partners are also renters. So we're in the renter pool ourselves and understand this process. When you're looking for a new place to rent, a new apartment complex, you might say, okay, today's Wednesday or whatever today is. I'm going to go, email in some apartment complexes, looking around. I want to get a list because I got the day off and I want to go check them out. Now, if I don't hear back for 5 days, I might have already made my decision on where I want to move next. And also on the weekends in particular, most people are working during normal business hours. Well, if your property management company is only responding to these messages during normal business hours, then they're missing out on the vast majority of people that are reaching out, which are going to be after normal business hours and or on the weekends. And these people might want to go check out the property on a weekend. They've got Saturday, Sunday off, and they say, hey, let's, to their roommate, let's go look at apartment complexes this weekend. That's when most people are looking. Well, we were finding out that that's really the main issue for us. So we needed to set up some kind of a system to where these people reaching out could get a response as soon as humanly possible. And we wanted to, we just didn't think enough leads were coming in through Zillow in particular. So we created our own Facebook Marketplace ads ourselves. We said, we're going to take over this and see if we can start driving more leads. So we created all of these like fancy Facebook Marketplace ads. We made them really catchy with professional photos. And then it would say like, we had concessions running at the time. So there'd be a banner at the bottom with the concession as the main photo. So all of these potential tenants are scrolling through. They see this awesome concession in the first picture as they're going through Facebook Marketplace. And we were getting clicks and messages like crazy. I'm talking like dozens and dozens. Like the phone was just exploding with all of these people interested in the complex. We couldn't keep up with them. So then we said, okay, we've got to create some message flows that will automatically respond to these people. So we created basically a copy and paste formula that would give them all the information they need, a video tour link right off the bat, and also information on how they could set up a self-guided tour, because this is during COVID when that first became popular, right? So to where they could go up, they'd get a code that's a one-time generated code to then get the key and go look at the apartment themselves. So this allowed us to obviously show them the apartment anytime, weekends, whatever. And, you know, I even wrote a blog article on our website all about the Facebook stuff, because I think that the Facebook Marketplace, for one, is by far in today's market the most powerful tool to marketing your unit. So if you're not already doing that, that's the number one way you're going to help yourself get more tenants. I'm telling you, Facebook Marketplace is insane. More people, they're already on Facebook all the time. So as they're scrolling through, if they're interested in looking at apartments, it's just an easy for them to click a button and go take a look. So more leads were coming in through Facebook Marketplace. We were getting a crazy amount of people that were responding and going and checking out the apartment. And then next thing you know, all these units that we had available were getting taken up like boom, 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 boom. I mean, they were on the market for a couple of weeks before, and then within a week or two, just hundreds of people interested in the units. And then we did one more thing. So we renegotiated with our property management company and said, look, we'll completely take over the leasing process. And we want a lower move-in fee for our agreement. So, you know, typically a property manager is going to charge you maybe all of the first month's rent, maybe 75 or 50% of first month's rent to place a tenant. So we got that down to 25% and said, we'll take over everything else. We'll just send them your way so you guys can do the application process with them, verify everything, and place the tenant. And they agreed. So what we did with that other 25%, because we were paying 50%, as we offered that other 25%, we found a go-getter real estate agent in the local market and said, hey, her name is Leah, she's great, or Leah, excuse me. We said, Leah, we'd like to offer you 25% of each apartment unit that we lease up for you to be our leasing agent. Because remember, if you're like less than 100 units, you don't really have leasing agents. You have your property management's office, and they've got to send someone over there, drive over there if you want to like physically show them a unit, which makes scheduling really difficult. So we found a local real estate agent. We offered her some money to be our leasing agent, and it's been working wonderfully. So now we've just got our template of message responses. A bunch of residents respond to our Facebook Marketplace ads and or Zillow ads, because we took over that as well. We send them the copy and paste that will give them a video tour and all this and that. If they want to speak to a leasing agent, call Leah. They call Leah. Leah handles it from there. She'll walk the unit with them if they want to be, you know, to try and also work as a salesperson, because that goes a long way too, right? It's one thing for them to go walk the unit themselves, but actually closing on the deal and getting them to fill out an application is another whole nother ballgame. So we use her for that. And then she gets them to fill out an application, and then that goes directly to our property management company. And that's how we increased our leads fivefold. I mean, it's just exploded after that.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, because we also use third-party management, and we also do a bunch of our own marketing on top of whatever they're doing. And we found the same results on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Where were you driving the leads to? So if I was on Facebook, you know, I send out a, hey, is this available? In our case, Kim, our other partner, she was taking in those leads and basically just shoving them to our property manager. Is that what you were doing, or were you doing more directly?
So a little bit of both. Excuse me. We include in our message, like basically what the requirements are, first of all, to rent the apartment unit, because so many people will say, hey, do you guys accept people with felons? Hey, do you guys, what's the minimum credit score? Things like that. And we just know that maybe 50% of people that even reach out aren't even qualified tenants, right? So we put the requirements right there just to kind of go ahead and filter out those. But where we sent them, we actually send them a link to our property management company. Actually gives our property like its own little portion of their website. Okay. And on there, they can click on whether they want a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom on our property. And then it'll link them to pictures and a video of the property. So we'll send them a link to that so that they can see that. And at the bottom of that page is a link to fill out an application. Okay. So that will funnel them directly to the property managers. Also in the message, it says that if they want to schedule a tour, we give them Leah's contact information, our leasing agent. So we basically can funnel them one of two ways. If they're already ready to fill out an application, go here. If you want to get a physical tour, go here, because Leah it's way easier for them to schedule with our leasing agent than with our property managers.
All right. And just, I should just say, I'll figure out, or maybe you could send me your blog post, and then shameless plug for our stuff. Kim put together a video series on advertising on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and using things like Canva. I don't know if that's what you use to create your ads. So we'll throw that in the show notes if somebody's interested in doing some more stuff on top of what their property manager's already doing. It'll be in the show notes. Darren, what were you going to say?
If I'm a prospective tenant for you currently, Shawn, do I still have the option of a self-tour, or do I have to go through Leah?
You do have the option of going with the self-tour, and we still send them Leah's way if they want to do a self-tour. That way Leah can kind of walk them through where to go, because she knows the property well. Yeah. Because we found that too many people would show up to the property. There's 4 different buildings. They get confused on which one they're supposed to be going to or where the unit is, or they can't, they're fiddling with the code box and don't understand it. So they need someone to contact regardless. Yeah. So we give them Leah so that she can at least hold their hand through that if they want to do that.
Right. I like that. You guys, I love the one-time code use feature. Do you guys, let's say, for example, you have wherever your empty unit is at the time it's being shown, if you have a self-tour, do you have cameras around, or do you not worry about it?
We just don't worry about it.
Okay.
So, I guess there's nothing really in the unit that they could steal other than appliances. So really we are just taking that risk that hopefully these people don't get a dolly and go in there and steal our brand new appliances. Mm-hmm. That is definitely a risk. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that. But we found that we haven't run into that issue quite yet. But
I imagine we've never used it, so I'm interested in talking about this a little bit more. It's restricted to certain hours. You're not giving somebody a door code at 9:00 at night because you don't want to invite any problems or disturb other tenants for that matter. There's quality of life issues.
So I don't remember we don't let them do it in the middle of the night, things like that. I don't remember exactly what the hours are, but I think it goes until even 8:00 at night or something where they'll still give somebody the code.
Because again, you're being serviceable.
Yeah.
You've got to have someone thank goodness the Facebook AI can run after hours, because it goes back to that, I think, and convenience for them.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you work a 9 to 5, right? Yeah. Or if you even or somebody that works until 6:00 at night or whatever the case may be, Monday through Friday, the leasing office and the property management is not open on weekends. How are you supposed to be one of my tenants? You'll never be able to go see it unless you take a day off of work. So that eliminates a huge portion of the renter pool that can't take off of work on those days or can only go in the evenings on weekdays if I don't allow them to look at it. So that really, I think helps get us a lot more tenants, because most places, if you want to check out the place, you're going to have to go during the week, during business hours.
Right. Yeah. You've got the differentiator, and it's, we talk about it all the time. In general, sometimes in business, there's a low bar, and it's pretty easy to outperform your competitors. And in this business, somebody shows up, they tour and they like it, you're now in the best position to get that conversion. So maybe whoever gets the tour first gets the pennant. And if most of your competitors aren't even touring on the weekends or after hours,
Mhm.
then you're giving yourself a greater chance of
Yeah, and I
getting
would
that
even
conversion.
say as another little bonus, what you could do, because if you're worried about, for example, like, oh, I don't want somebody to copy the key or something, you could just change out the lock. What's that going to cost you? $20 to change out the lock right when the next person moves in. So if you want to do that, you could do that and just change out the lock when someone actually decides to move in. I mean, the worst that could happen is, yeah, somebody could steal the appliances in theory. Which would definitely stink. But I think that that's, that might be a risk you're going to have to be willing to take if you want to use this strategy. We've been doing it for a couple of years now and haven't run into that issue yet. Another idea you could also use is like, because I have an Airbnb property as well, or a couple of Airbnbs. You could also just put one of those coded keypad locks on there to give them a key code, so that they can then use the keypad. It automatically locks when they leave, and then put back the regular lock whenever somebody's ready to move in.
Yeah, and like the $20 lock, some people are very
Yeah, I mean, it's going to cost you like
centric. I'm like, you're losing $30 a day with a vacancy. What's it?
Right.
Yeah, who cares about putting the $20 lock back if you got it rented 5 days quicker?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. It's awesome to hear from your actual experience doing that. We had never done that. I've been curious to see how that has played out. I'm sure there's some horror stories out there, but there's horror stories in every situation that you take.
It's worth a try, in my opinion.
It's worth a try. Yeah, and it's one of the few ways that you can be really impactful if you're not managing yourself to take what you can control, and maybe a duplication, because we're often running ads and still do run ads parallel with what our property manager does, but it's so be it. I don't care,
Yeah. They better not be upset with more leads, because
exactly. It's like we're actually making your job easier. So
and still paying you.
Yeah. And still paying them.
Yeah, still paying. I like the renegotiation thing. That's a great strategy. And like I said,
renegotiate and then use that money because you're already using it. And if you're going to get less vacancy because of this, you're going to be saving even more money. So take that money and maybe put it to use somewhere else. Even if this means, here's another idea, because this is going to require obviously a little more time on the operator's point of view. So somebody might be thinking, the natural question would be, well, what if I start to scale my portfolio a little bit and I get another 32 unit? Like, this is going to be a lot of people messaging me. That's a good point. Try to maybe renegotiate, then take that money, go to find yourself a virtual assistant. A great place you could find one is like on Upwork, and then pay that person to just respond to these messages on Facebook. You add them onto the account. There's literally specific real estate virtual assistants all around the world that you could pay a low dollar per hour amount to work for you, responding to these messages. And you can even give them certain windows out of the day and say, hey, certain times a day, I want you to go check these messages, and I want you to give them this copy paste workflow. Here's answers to frequently asked questions. Boom.
Yeah, because I know Kim, she put together some systems. Once it was built, she doesn't spend a lot of time doing this. Mm-hmm. And then I would say the danger of, because this is on Facebook Marketplace, is that you get on there to respond to message and you end up burning a bunch of time because it's just Facebook and that's what they're good at doing. So, get in, get out, do what needs to be done, move on.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I do think that Facebook now, because I'm not the one that's actually responding to these messages anymore, but I do think that Facebook has a bot. They didn't have this before, but now they have a bot responder. I'm trying to.
Yeah, they do.
So just like when you go to a website, you could teach it what you want it to say to people. So just add your flows in there to where you're giving them the information they need, who exactly to contact for a tour, who to contact to fill out an application. That will handle 90% of your messages. Other than, every once in a while, even people just won't read it. You're going to find that. So in my post, it says people with felons don't apply. People will still ask you, well, what if I have a felon? Can I apply? They just won't read it. They're going to run into that.
All right, let's move on to managing from out of state, because we have never had to do that. So I'm curious, what are some of the strategies you use? And I'm also curious, since you're in multiple states, correct? Mm-hmm. Are you dealing with multiple different property management platforms. I know I am. Somebody uses RealPage, somebody else uses Yardy Breeze, somebody else uses Appfolio or whatever it is. If you're in that situation, um, are you doing anything to condense different information from different providers into some kind of manageable platform or dashboard?
Well, not really as far as like condensing it into a dashboard. So we own properties in Indiana and North Carolina. Now the North Carolina properties are all 150 units. There's 2 properties, each of them are right at 150 units. So those have on-site staff, and we're also co-GPs on that with Mac Venture Partners. Excuse me, they're vertically integrated with their own property management company. The software that they use is Entrada. So I, get on Entrada to see a lot of the information, but that, when you're dealing with managing from out of state on a property that's 150 units or larger, and you have an on-site leasing office with full-time staff, a full-time maintenance staff, your job gets exponentially easier, at least 100 times easier, way easier when you have those kind of people. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the 32 unit and why that's more difficult and some of the strategy we use. Now, for the 32 unit, there isn't on-site staff because, a property that small can't support it. So you're going to, as a property, the manager of the manager, you're going to be doing a lot more work that you otherwise won't be doing. What we do is every single week, I have a list of basically common questions that I want my property manager to answer. So they're due on Thursdays. And we have a Google Drive, Google sheet that she can go in and send questions every week, answer the questions, and then that way I can log on and check the answers to her questions. What this does, because what I found is that every single week I'm sending my property manager the same questions. I'm saying, hey, where are we at with the current unit turns? What's the status? When will they be finished? Or if a property is going to be going vacant, what properties do we have that were recently vacated? When am I going to have the quote in my hand? And then I'll have like a list of all the current CapEx projects, like landscaping or resurfacing the parking lots or whatever. Where are we at with this? When's the work going to get started? Things like that. There's all of these different things that I want answers to routinely. And so she could just go in, because I found that oftentimes the main point of contact for me might not be in the office, because she's managing other properties as well. She might be busy on the phone or something. I don't want to play phone tag with her. So I hop on a scheduled call with her once a week. And then once a week, I have her keep that sheet updated. So this just makes it easier for her. It makes it easier for me. I get all the information that I want. And then there's still a lot of other emails that happen throughout the week, but it makes it, I think it streamlines a lot more of the work for both of us. When it comes to managing out of state, I think that you need to do something like that. Set systems in place to where you're on the phone with your property manager every week, and you're obviously communicating with a lot of emails and things like that. That's going to just keep you on top of everything that's going on with the property, and it allows you as the decision maker to make all of the big decisions. Everything else, like when it comes to all the maintenance orders and stuff, the software they use is called Tenant Turner. So every time a tenant puts in a work order for some maintenance, I see it immediately. So, that's part of my daily routine. I look at my emails, I read through what's going on with the property. If it's below a certain dollar amount, my property manager is allowed to just make the decision and go fix it. If it's above a certain dollar amount, they have to have me click the approve button. When it comes to the big projects, it requires more work for me. So for example, we've done replaced roofs, we've replaced windows, we've resurfaced parking lots, we've redone the landscaping, we've had new signage put in, all of these big projects. You could either say, hey, property manager, I want you to go get me 3 bids for parking lot reseal and stripe. You could put that in their hands. And oftentimes what they could do is they could even mark that up for you, or they could use preferred vendors. I personally just like to make the calls myself, because I want to go find the best deal and I want to wheel and deal myself. So with all of the big projects, I handle that, and I go call all the people around town to get bids and get the best deals, because I just want my hands on that. I want to do that. You don't have to do that. sorry if I digress a little too many details, but these are some of the strategies that I like to use in my preferences. Now, the reason why managing a property that's 150 units is easier is when I have the on-site leasing staff, that frees up a lot of my time. I have now employees that I could direct to do a lot of this for me that are working only on my property. If I were to tell my property management on the 32 unit and I said, hey, I need you to go get me 3 bids for a parking lot reseal, that's probably going to take them a couple of days. If I tell my 150 unit staff to do that, I'll get it done today, or I'll have it at the latest tomorrow, because they're my employees. I just instructed them to do it. They're going to get on that, right? And they're usually going to do a great job. I could also kind of mold them and teach them how exactly I want them to do something. It's a little bit harder to mold and teach your property management of the smaller properties because they're managing all of these other properties. Their sole focus isn't on yours. So yeah, it's a little bit tough when it comes to just managing out of state. I do also visit the properties. So there's just higher costs involved because I like to go check out the projects when they get finished. So I fly out there, I walk the property. I might notice a couple more things like, oh, wait a minute, we should probably fix the fascia right here. I don't like the way that looks. Or, you know, the front door is getting really banged up. Can we get this cleaned? You know, I like to notice things that maybe my property management won't be as picky about. So I walk the properties and fly out there, but I don't feel the need to be out there consistently. I think that there's definitely an advantage for some people that live in their markets and know and understand it. There's a market advantage, but I don't think anyone should be too afraid to manage from out of state. It's all doable.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Darren.
But for the bigger properties, you're managing in-house, not third party.
Not necessarily. For the bigger properties, we are managing in-house. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't have to, is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Oh, well, for sure. Yeah. But that does allow, and that's why we're moving that direction, is it just allows you more control, period. They work directly for you. There's no negotiation that this is the way we've already done it, blah, blah, blah. And then for the 32, I do see why, and you know, most people in the industry you speak to that's been doing this any amount of time say, hey, 100 is that magic number. 100 is when everything becomes scalable. Everything becomes easier. And I truly believe that based on what we've seen. I want to go back to a comment you made early in talking about management. You said currently with the one manager, you have a weekly call scheduled and you have this list of questions that ends up being the same list of questions every week, but it's just basically an updated status. Mm-hmm. Do you not talk about those questions on that call? And I get, so I'm looking at this as 2 separate instances, and maybe that's just an ongoing update of the things you have going on that property. I'm not sure, but Is that an extra time you're spending? Just maybe another touch point for some reason. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it too. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. So actually, sometimes we just cancel the weekly call if I don't have enough that I want to talk about. But we just set it up so it's there, and I have to cancel it, right? So that if it's already set there on the schedule so we can get it done. But I've just found that when it comes to emails, a lot of times not all information gets shared, or it's not as thorough, or you know how it is. Like you might send an email to someone or they send an email to you, and it's hard to gauge maybe urgency, or it's hard to gauge, their emotions about it. And so I like to just hop on a call to discuss in a little more detail certain things. So for example, usually, honestly, these calls are to discuss issues that are too complex or to be in that email. So I usually get emails. The email updates are just like standard projects that we're working on. And honestly, the phone calls are mostly maintenance things that come up that are kind of a big deal. So as a perfect example, we just had a roof leak that leaked into 2 units and caused a lot of water damage. And this quickly turned into mold. So as soon as the tenant reported the water leak, I wanted to I saw some pictures, but I wanted to get more details. So I hopped on the phone call with my manager. And I said, hey, what's going on? So did she just find out about this leak? And she, kind of went into more details on what she saw when she visited. And I talked to her about how we're going to take care of the tenant. What are your ideas for, taking care of this tenant? Because basically their unit's going to be a construction zone now for probably a week. And so I just want to get there to be more back and forth on me asking questions and getting answers, kind of getting a feel for the situation. We had another incident where there was a leak that was coming up from the floor, and it turns out that there was a drain pipe that was busted because it was an old cast iron drain pipe that was just rusted out, and the bottom of it had corroded. And so there was just a lot of more discussion that was involved in that one as well. So I guess the answer would be just stuff that is an email. I don't want to read a 4-page email to get all the details. Let's just get on the phone call and talk about this.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think you're going through two things. Number one, there's an accountability there, which you definitely want. But number two, you're still in a growth period. You're still in, hey, this is how we do things, and this is how I want to continue to do them. I'm assuming that's where you still are in the infancy of your company. So that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I was just going to add, what's nice about like that Google Sheet idea is that it becomes more of a living document, whereas emails get traded back and forth, and you can just continually add things to that list as needed, or take things away as a rehab gets done and you no longer need an update on it. We just recently created kind of a dashboard for some KPIs, because we're amongst ourselves, we're doing it more as a narrative through email. I'm like, well, we're losing the hindsight by keeping this in narrative form. We need to like put it on a spreadsheet where we can, track it a little bit more. So come up with ways that you've got an evergreen spot where everybody can go. That's a link. And can touch multiple times, because some, emails, we get a lot of emails.
Yeah, speaking of key performance indicators, I wanted to comment on that real quick. Another point of this sheet and the back and forth emails with my property manager is because I'm trying to get key data points that I track personally. So I have a spreadsheet where I have, I want to know the exact date, obviously, when the unit went vacant, the date that I got the quote, the date that the work actually started, the date that the renovations completed, and how much the renovation cost. Those are really 5 things from my role, as keeping track of all these renovations that I like to track with my property manager. So when, a lot of the questions that I have for her are basically those data points. Okay, so this unit went vacant. All right, I already know the date that it went vacant because that's on the property management software. When are you going to have me a quote? They usually tell me that they'll get me a quote within 48 hours. Sometimes that's taken longer. And if I had those data points, I can now go to her boss and say, look, you guys told me that these renovations would be done within 10 to 14 business days and that I'd have a quote within 48 hours. Here's all the instances where that wasn't the case. And I've tracked all of this on the spreadsheet. So by getting those data points, it serves as a reminder to the property manager that I'm keeping track of all of this stuff. And it gives me the data points I'm looking for, so I can have really accurate key performance indicators in a spreadsheet over time. So that's another reason for doing it.
Great.
Yeah, and just one more thing that I thought about when you're talking about managing from out of state, you mentioned like you get a notification of work orders as they're requested. So if that is something as an owner that you want to be that granular about, make sure that you are interviewing your property managers to see what level of prompt tech that they are using, how comfortable they are with it. And so once you have this relationship going, to try and get somebody to change their ways and use some of the online leasing or work order notification that goes directly to the owner, which may be already in their property software, but they're not using, to get somebody to change their ways on the fly is incredibly difficult. So I would recommend, having those conversations early and often about what features of their software that they use, and set that expectation. It's like, when you get a work order, I want it pinged in my inbox.
That's a great
point. Like, oh, we don't do that. And we're like, okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Have a great day.
Yeah, because if you think you're going to all of a sudden get that afterwards, like once you start working with them, it's not going to happen.
Correct.
You're not.
Correct.
So on that lovely note, no, this is great. I appreciate it. I know Darren's got to head in a few minutes, so I think that's a good stopping point. I just wanted to review for this episode. We just really talked about 3 things: 401ks, tenant leads, and out-of-state management. And Shawn, you added a lot of like specific information to each one of those, which I always appreciated to hear and share with people that are listening. It,
Thank you.
you know, kind of takes things beyond rules of thumbs and nicely condensed, concise books into how this, you know, stuff actually happens on the day to day. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing from experience, you know, what you're doing
Thank you.
and what you're up to. Moving forward, you know, where can people check out Pack 3 and what you guys are going? And we'll of course add it all to the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to reach us is, as you can see here, Pack 3 Capital. That's how you spell it if you're looking on YouTube. Visit our website, www.pack, that's PAC, the number 3, capital.com, pack3capital.com. You can reach out to us, and you can also reach out to me via direct email. I'm cool with that. Shawn, spelled SHAWN, at pack3capital.com. You can reach out to me with questions if you want to hop on a call. Get some advice, whatever you need. I'll try to provide as much value as I possibly can. But thanks again, guys, for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. I love talking this stuff. This is fun for me.
Oh, awesome. And for Darren, I'll take us out. Thank you again for joining us on the Real Wealth Solutions podcast. We certainly do appreciate it when you share, subscribe, and review. It really does help move the needle and helps people find things a little bit easier. And in addition, in our show notes, we've added our newsletter opt-in. You can click that. We'd love to have you getting our not too spammy information about what we're up to in Central and Eastern Tennessee and the Carolinas, Shawn. We could talk off camera. Again, thank you. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.